Swanson, you get that question? I said, what's up? Cool.
So what's the difference between a chat and a QA? I guess one is more formal than the other.
Private. I don't think anyone else can see it.
Oh, okay. Huh.
No, I can see it.
Oh, you
Hey,
can?
I had an option.
Never mind.
I had an option of responding privately.
No, you can send it anonymously if
Oh, okay. So if it's a dumb question, like Logan prefaces his questions in steel, this was probably a dumb question, but oh, there's another one. Okay, great. What is a matrix? It's an alternate universe that is used to keep our minds happy while they suction energy out of our bodies.
See, I think that's what I had on my homework actually.
Yeah, right. Awesome. All right, you guys can tell from my computer that I am back home today, which makes teaching a lot nicer. I've got more control over my environment. I've got better equipment here than I do at school. So the only thing I have to guard against is my wife coming home and telling me what a great job she did at Home Depot. So she's due home any minute. And I told her I was going to be teaching, but we'll see if she remembers. All right, let's get started with some announcements. Yeah, this is my last class of the week. I'll be on campus tomorrow for most of the day. So if you have questions, hit me up in person or send me text messages. You guys, next week, looking ahead, think I'm going to shift my office hours from Thursday to Tuesday. I'll probably be home again on Tuesday, so I'll hold office hours then, and then that free up some time on Thursday morning for other stuff. And looking at our due dates, we have homework due tomorrow at 5 o'clock, and then there should be a beam modeling assignment that I'll post. Probably not today, but I'll probably post that tomorrow. All right. Let's see. Yep. So today's agenda. Oh, excuse me. I want to toggle back again and look at the matrix analysis stuff in a little bit more detail with an example problem. And then if time permits, we'll play with SAP and illustrate some of the issues I was trying to illustrate with PowerPoint in class on Tuesday. So to get started, one of the things that I want you to be aware of is that I posted a few files today. I didn't post them as early as I would like to if I was working on something else this morning. So there's an Excel file and then this PowerPoint file as well, plus a visual analysis file. Never fails. I sit here in my office just working away all morning and I don't use my voice at all. And then I start lecturing and all of a sudden I have to clear out all the frogs from my voice. Right. So, yeah, so what we're going to do is take a look at this. It's the Truss that you guys might be familiar with if you've had me in class in the past. When I teach structural loads and systems, I use this as one of the homework problems for wind load stuff. And so what I want to do today is construct a model of the truss in Excel and then solve for the member forces and the nodal displacements. It's actually the other way around, solve for the nodal displacements and then the member forces. And so the here's a sketch of the truss with the loads and the degrees of freedom. So I've got, let's see, I've got 7 different nodes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. And then I've got, how many members? 14. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 members. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 members. Now, this is one of those oddities that I spot after I've finished working the example. And this member down here at the bottom going between nodes A and G, That's a truss member spanning between two restrained nodes, so there shouldn't ever be any force in that member. So it's almost pointless to have it there, but I put it there anyways. If there was a roller instead of two pins, then that would probably carry some load. And then here are the loads as well. This comes out of the solution of one of my loads and systems homework. So the goal of this problem is to determine the member forces. So I went through and solved it in visual analysis first. Here are the member forces that I got from my visual analysis model. And I spit those out into a table. So we have nodal displacements and member forces. And that's what we're aiming for with the matrix analysis stuff. So let's see. I didn't mean to show you that. Probably a lot of things on here I should have hidden first. Move that over there. So let me open the seed file that I sent to you. I was working on another lecture this morning. Probably close that too. There it is. All right, so here's the seed file. And basically, what this is basically just a partial solution to the assignment. Is that the one that I make sure I'm opening the right one? Had different versions of it this morning as I was playing around with it, and yeah, here we go. Okay. All right, so in this seed file, I have the data for the truss. So basically, I just have a table of nodes, and in here I'm typing in the nodal coordinates. And then I have some mapping that goes with the degrees of freedom. So I know which degree of freedom corresponds to each of the nodes. Then I have my nodal coordinates in feet and in inches so that I don't have to convert. I can just map back and forth. Then here's the data corresponding to the members. So I didn't number the members, so I'll just refer to them based on the nodes at each end. So member AB goes from node A to node B, for example. And all of the members are 2L 4x4.5, which has an area of 7.5 inches squared. They're all steel, so they have modulus of elasticity of 29,000 KSI. And then here's the ith node and the jth node, right? So then what this does is it uses a VLOOKUP command, a databasing command, to go up into the nodal data and look up the X and the Y locations up there. So I can update this dynamically. If I wanted to have a member that goes between nodes A and F, for example, I could do that and it would automatically update those nodes. Just a shorthand way of keeping track of data without having to enter it all in twice. Here's the length of the member calculated using the square root of the sum of the squares. And then here's the directional cosine and the directional sine. And so on the second tab of this workbook, we have, is this the same version that's posted? It is not. Okay. I didn't think so. What the heck am I doing wrong? Oh, I know what I'm doing wrong. Let me close this out and open up the right version. I've got the wrong directory open. So it's the right name, but it's in the wrong directory. So that's why. There we go. I think that first sheet was the same. I don't remember changing that. There we go. That makes more sense. All right, and then the second sheet is where I calculate the element stiffness matrices. And I went ahead and populated this partially. And so if we look here at the top for member AB, for example, I'm just making a reference back to the data sheet where I'm looking up the cross-sectional area. I'm looking up the modulus of elasticity, the length of the element, the directional cosine, and the directional sine. And then in this 4x4 matrix here, this is the element stiffness matrix in global coordinates. And I'm just using the equations that we derived or that we discussed last week, where we have AE over L times the cosine squared, AE over L times the sine squared, or AE over L times the sine times the cosine. So hopefully you guys have done this already for your homework due tomorrow. If you haven't, then you probably should get started on that post haste. And then these columns over here, I'll come back and refer to those later on. But you'll see, let me zoom back out a little bit. I have one of these element stiffness matrices for each of the 11 elements that are in the structure. And so as we scroll down through, you can see how that works out. Now, the next step after we work through those is I wanted to come down here to the end and go to our list. The next step is to expand the stiffness matrices to include all structure degrees of freedom. And so that's done here, right? So I have 4 degrees of freedom for member AB, but for the structure, I have 14 degrees of freedom. So what I need to do as the first step in the assembly process is I need to expand that 4x4 matrix to a 14x14 matrix. And so this can be a rather tedious process, but let me show you the most straightforward way of doing it. Not necessarily the best way, but the most straightforward way of doing it. So member AB connects degrees of freedom 1 and 2 with degrees of freedom 3 and 4. So if I want to expand that matrix, I can just use my equal sign here, and the upper 16 elements of that matrix are going to be equal to those values there. However, when we get to member AG, it connects degrees of freedom 1 and 2 with degrees of freedom 13 and 14. So when I expand that, I have to be a little bit more careful. And so then I can come down here and do that. I can go up here and do that. All right, see what I'm doing? I'm just mapping these degrees of freedom out. And with a system like this, where I have all these, all 14 structure degrees of freedom, this process is ripe for errors. So in this case, I need 3, 4, 5, and 6. So like that. Here I need 3, 4, 11, and 12. Okay, and then now over here, that's 11 and 12, so that's equal to that guy. Then I go down here, that's equal to that guy. And then over here, that's equal to that guy. I put the odds of me getting this right the first time somewhere at around maybe 60%. That's only because I practiced a little bit this morning. I did my finger exercises to make sure everything was loose and I'm not going to pull a muscle or anything like that. Let's see. Okay, 13, 14. Yeah, I was second guessing myself already. And this goes here. This is really just a bookkeeping problem, right? And if you were writing this as a routine in Python or Visual Basic, I like Visual Basic, or in C++, it would be a loop with indices I and J and probably another dummy index K maybe, or something like that. And it's actually simpler to write it that way if you're a programmer than it is to go through this arduous process. All right, I'm just making chit chat. 5, 6, 7, 5, 6, 9, 10. Okay, so there we go. 5, 6, 9, and 10. There we go. All right, let's see. I'm getting close. I got what? 4. Oh my, I still got a lot more to go. Let's see. 5, 6, 11, and 12. This equals that. Okay, now I got 7, 8, 9, and 10. That makes it nice because I can just copy one block of 4x4. Okay, 9, 10, 11, and 12. That makes it nice because I can just copy one block of 4x4. And then 11, 12, 13, 14. All right, and then this is going to be the global structure stiffness matrix. I'm not even going to bother to try and spell it correct. And so what I basically want to do is go back through, love that, don't you? I want to add up these expanded stiffness matrices. And what I did before class was I copied the cell that I want here. That's the equation. So I'm going to copy the cell contents and then I'm going to paste them into the cell. I'm not copying one cell to the other because then the relative references would be off. But I select the contents of the cell and then paste it into the cell contents. And then I can do this. And that gives me the global structure stiffness matrix in global coordinates, if I've done it correctly. All right, now let me shift gears here. I'm going to skip this V2 tab for a minute and go to the assembly tab. And so what I want to do now is I'm just going to reference that stiffness matrix that I just made. All right, so I'm going to reference that. I'm going to go up here like this and copy that down. And then because I knew I was likely to make an error during that expansion process, I copied the correct answer here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to check my work by saying that I want that cell to equal that cell minus that cell. And so if I copy that over into a 14 by 14 block and I get a block of zeros, then I know that my answer is correct. And it is not. I've got an error someplace, right? So, gosh, anybody spot the error when I was doing it? This is always fun to find the error when I'm live and flying without a net. So it's related to degrees of freedom. Let's see. Let's copy that over there like that. Let's copy that like that. So degrees of freedom 5, 6, 11, and 12. So that's strange that it would be just one block like that. Let me go back here and see if I can spot it. 5, 6, 11, and 12. No, that's 5, 6, 11, and 12. I like it though. And let's, oh no. Oh, I have a negative sign in there. How the hell did I get a negative sign? I must have fat fingered it. All right, now let's go and check that again. All right, all zeros. I never thought I would be so excited to see zeros in my life. Let me shut up my watch. It's probably my Italian friend. All right, so there's the stiffness matrix that I have. And so what I've done is I've expanded the local element stiffness matrices so that they're each 14 by 14. Then I add them together. I get the global stiffness matrix. Now the next step is to perform some calculations on that so that it is restrained. Right now, this stiffness matrix that's shown here doesn't at all reflect the restraints that I have on the bottom of this. So I need to restrain degrees of freedom 1, 2, 13, and 14. And I have different options for doing that. The first of the 3 solution techniques is to go in and delete the rows and the columns of that matrix that correspond to the restrained degrees of freedom. So I'm going to call this solution option 1. I just copied it over because I'm going to do solution option 2 and solution option 3. And I didn't want to have to rewrite all of this. So let me go ahead and I'll delete these rows. I'll delete these columns over here. Oops. I didn't mean to make my formula bar so deep. How did I do that? Okay. So what I'm going to do is just go in like this. I'm going to select those 4 columns and I'm going to hit delete. I'm going to go in and hit those 4 rows. Whoops. Use the control key instead of the shift key and delete those as well. And so what I'm left with now, instead of a 14 by 14 matrix, it should be a 10 by 10 stiffness matrix. And so if I'm careful, I should be able to invert that matrix. So let me do this. I want to retain the degrees of freedom label, the DOF labels, so that I can map them back. That makes life easier. And so that will go there. And I'll say this is equal to M-I-N-V-E-R-S-E, M inverse of this guy. Control Shift Enter, and there's my inverted matrix. Now, let me do this. I need the loads that are on the structure as well. So let me Alt Tab back here. Now, corresponding to degree of freedom number 7, I have a load that's equal to minus 15.14 kips. So degree of freedom number 7, minus 15.14. Corresponding to degree of freedom number 9, I have a load that's equal to minus 30.29 kips. So minus 30.29. And then corresponding to degree of freedom number 11, I have a load equal to minus 14.14 kips, minus 14.14 kips. All right, now let's see if we go back here and look at solution option number 1, the process that I deleted the rows and columns. Now I'm just multiplying the inverted stiffness matrix by the load matrix, and that's going to give me displacements. So do that. This is going to be equal to MMULT, spell it right. And I'll go over here and select the inverted matrix as my first matrix. I'll come up here and select this matrix as my second. And it gives me val. Let me type in zeros. Yes. Okay, and because I'm anal retentive, I can't stand to look at that formatted like that. There we go. That's so much beautifuler. And so this is my displacements, delta. This is the inverted global stiffness matrix, inverted restrained stiffness, inverted restrained stiffness matrix. This is the load matrix up here, right? And so what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to go back and expand that so that I have all 14 degrees of freedom. I'm just grabbing these numbers from that sheet, and I'm going to put it down here like that. And so I know that the displacements that are corresponding to degrees of freedom 1 and 2 are 0, but this will make it easier to map those. And now these guys here, I can just use a reference like that. And now I have all of my displacements for all 14 degrees of freedom, not just the displacements for the 10 unrestrained degrees of freedom. So now what I can do is come back over here to the member matrix, and I can look up these displacements. So let me do this. I'm going to use the index command. And if you're not familiar with it, you should be. It'll make your life a whole lot better. You're going to have one of those well, I almost said come to Jesus moments, but that wouldn't apply necessarily to everybody. You'll have one of those enlightened moments where you think, oh my gosh, how did I ever live without this command? And so what we're going to do is we're going to use the index command on this array. And I'm going to use F4. And then I want to know which element, and it's going to be that element of that array right there. And so then the structure degree of freedom has a number 3 has a displacement of minus 1026, and so then I can multiply. So this is an M multiplication command, and that gives me my member forces. So if I've done this correctly, I should have a member force in member AB equal to minus 84.62. Boy, I hope this works. So let me go back here, minus 84.62. Holy shit, I got it right. So, yep, there we go. And so then what I would do is take that and I would just copy it down through here like that so that I'm referencing the right cells. And now I have all my member forces. So member AG, the member that spans between those two supported nodes, has a 0 member force as expected. So, all right, I think everything else is right. To exercise due diligence, I would go back through at this point and check all the numbers, make sure that I'm good to go. But in the interest of time, let's assume that I'm right, and we'll go and we'll solve the problem again using solution method number 2. So let me copy this assembled stiffness matrix again. I'm going to call it SOLN opt2. And in this case, what I'm going to do is, again, delete rows and columns that I don't need. Oh, I guess I didn't delete that, right? Yeah, let's do that again. Whoops. Delete. There we go. All right. And so let me just go back here and snag the loads that I had from before. That'll save me some time. So let me put those there, and all right, and then I have a 0 load there and a 0 load there as well. Now, in order to restrain this stiffness matrix, I need a sufficiently large value that I'm going to add to the diagonal elements of the matrix that correspond to the restrained degrees of freedom. So the diagonal elements of this matrix that correspond to the restrained degrees of freedom are those 4 elements there. So I'm just going to enter a value up here in this cell. Let me call it 999,999. That's just, what, almost a million, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that's equal to whatever it was equal to plus this guy there. And I'm going to do the same thing here, plus that guy there. I'm going to do this is equal to that plus that guy there. And that way I can vary that arbitrary stiffness that I'm adding in by just changing the contents of one cell. Let me get rid of the decimal places. There we go. And that makes that a little bit easier to read. So that's just a really large number. So just for sake of formatting, I'm going to copy this series of cells. And then here, let me get rid Alt HHN. Let me get rid of those and go equals M inverse. And now I'm going to invert this 14 by 14 matrix. And it came up with a bunch of zeros because I have the formatting strange. Let me do this. Now you can see non-zero values. Now, let me go ahead and solve for the displacements. So here I have, so this 14 element vector is going to be equal to MMULT of the inverted stiffness matrix and the load matrix. Okay, there we go. So those are the displacements. Let me format those as a number with 4 digits of precision. There we go. And then what I'll do just to check that is I'll bring these over here. Let me do this. Let me bring these over here, and I'm going to copy them, and then I'm going to paste them as values. And then I can do an equals this minus that and look at the error that I have. A little bit of error in there. So I've got some error in the 4th significant figure. So let me type in a lower value. Let me type in 999 up here. Note that I get a lot more error. The matrix operations think that the solution is still stable, but the supports are settling or moving now because they're less stiff. If I put in 4 9s instead of 3 9s, then I get, yeah. And so these displacements here that correspond to, these displacements here that correspond to the restrained degrees of freedom should be equal to 0 if everything is correct. So let me just put in a bunch of 9s. Am I going to cause an overflow error? There we go. Now they go to 0 because those, in putting in 1e to the 1 times 10 to the 21st, that's infinity as far as the solution process is concerned. All right, so that's matrix solution number 2, solution option number 2. All right, let's see if we go and do solution option number 3. Let me copy that again, name it SOLN OPT3. And so the process in this case is to reorder and partition the global stiffness matrix such that the free degrees of freedom are first and the restrained degrees of freedom are second or last. All right, now what I'm going to do, the wife is home. What I'm going to do is this, and this becomes a little bit tedious. There's a couple of different ways of doing this. Let me do it this way. I'm going to say this is equal to that. I'm going to copy that around. Then I'm going to take these two rows. I'm going to cut them. I'm going to insert them here before those two, these two columns, insert them before those two columns. All right, so that's still referring up there. That's still referring there. That's still referring there. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing with the first two rows. I'll cut those and then I'll insert them before the last two rows. Oops, okay. And insert cut cells. And yeah, all right, now let's make sure this goes to the 3-3 element. Yeah, okay. So what I'm going to do now is just use some borders to delineate those. You could actually break it up into 4 separate matrices if you want to. So, but there's really no need to do that. I'm just going to put borders on here to delineate. And then, yeah, we'll go back there. That's what I want. Okay, so then this guy up here, this 10 by 10 matrix is a case of FF, the free stiffness matrix. This matrix down here is case of RR, the restrained strained stiffness matrix. This is case of FR, the free restrained stiffness matrix. And then this is case of RF, the restrained free stiffness matrix. Now, let me go back and do the same thing with the loads. And for sake of time, I'll just copy the loads that I created for solution option number 2. I'll put them up here. Let me copy those down here like this. And I'm going to cheat a little bit. And I think I can copy formulas. Yes, that worked. Good. And so now I have my sorted degrees of freedom and my sorted loads. So in order to implement solution option number 3, we need the matrix operations. And I either have to use a piece of scratch paper and write this out every time, or I have to go back to this slide. And so what I can do is solve for the free displacements, delta sub f, by taking the inverse of KFF multiplied times the free loads minus the free restrained stiffness matrix times delta sub r. All right, so let's do this. So I'm going to come over here. Let's make this my sorted loads or reordered loads. This is going to be my displacements, and let me put them in the goofy order too, like that. And so my free displacements are going to go here. Let's see. This is going to be equal to MINVERS M inverse of this. So I'm embedding all of these. So I have M inverse times, and now, so this is going to be the second in a MMULT. This is going to be, well, I guess I can't do it all embedded, can I? I need to add the two matrices together. Is there an add command? Joe, you're a matrix guru. Do you know if I can add them using a matrix add thing? No, I don't think so either. Let me try over here just to see equals M, call it mad. No, I don't think so. I don't think I can add two arrays together. Since the restrained displacements was equal to 0, let me do this. I'll come up here and I'll take this part that's in parens. There we go. I'll take this part here that's in parens and I'll calculate that out as one value. So it's P sub F minus KFR minus delta R. So I'll just put that up here. So that's P sub F minus delta FR times this, what was it? KFR delta R. There we go. So, well, I need, I didn't practice this part before class, can you tell? All right, let me take that. So that's going to be KFR times delta R. Let me move it down here, actually. That makes more sense. Insert. There we go. So this is equal to MMULT. And so K free restrained is that, comma, delta restrained is that. All right, that gives me zeros, which makes sense because I have zero displacements. Then I can say this is equal to that, whoops, minus that. Okay. And then now what I can do is take this vector here instead. There we go. All right, so then that gives me my free displacements. Then these are equal to those, like that. And so those are my displacements. And then what I would do is come down here and I would sort those again because everybody likes to see them in order. And so here I would say equals index, give me this array, comma, and then I would go match. I want to match the lookup value is equal to that in this array up here. I want to F4 that. I want to close that, close that. I want to go back and F4 that and that. And I got a reference error. Thank you. Oh, I got an extra comma in there. And I got an NA. Huh. I'm not sure what's wrong with that. Lookup value, lookup array, match type is 0. Let's try that. There we go. It was thinking those numbers were in order and they're not in order, so I had to say explicit match type. All right, there we go. And if you're not familiar with lookup, with match and index, I have a presentation coming up in a bit, another day or two, where I'll show you how to use those. Right, so there's my displacements, so I could go back to my member matrix now and I could reference those instead. So let me do that. Instead, I'm going to reference, instead of referencing solution option number 1 in that matrix, what I'm going to do is delete that, and I'm going to reference instead solution option number 3 and that matrix with the F4s. Okay, now, if I've done this correctly, then nothing should change, right? I've got the same answers using solution option number 3 as I did with solution options number 1. But the beauty of this approach is twofold. The first thing is that now I can put in a support displacement if I want to. So if I want to say the support number, let's go back to the degrees of freedom. So if I want to say, for example, that degree of freedom number 13 or support number G moves 2 inches to the right, I can do that. And I couldn't do that before. So if I go in here for degree of freedom number 13 and put a 2 in there, now look, I get a 2-inch displacement there. And if I go back and look at member AG, now all of a sudden it's carrying 1,450 kips because of that support displacement. And so this adds a level of flexibility and dynamicism, is that a word, to the solution process, in that I can account for support settlements. We don't use those much at the undergraduate level in our classes, but when you go out in the real world and start modeling structures, then sometimes accounting for displacements at supports is important. Both visual analysis and SAP 2000 and just about every modeling package worth the time to install will allow you to model support settlements. Right, so that's one of the options. Another beauty of this is that it allows us to calculate reaction forces directly. So let's see, here we go. So we can solve for the reaction forces KRF times delta F plus KRR times delta R. So let me do that. Let me just keep working from left to right here. So I'll go R net is here, and that was equal to KRF delta F plus KRR delta R. Okay, so what I need to do is break that up into 2 operations. So the first one will be to multiply KRF and delta F. And the second will be to multiply KRR and delta R, and then I'll add them together. So KRF, restrained rows, free columns. So that's going to be, what's that going to be? It's going to be free columns. So it's going to give me 4. I think that's going to be like that. So that equals MMULT. KRF is here, comma, free displacements is there. All right, good. I like it. This is equal to KRR times delta R. Oops, I got to do MMULT. KRR is here, comma, delta R is here. I didn't select all the cells. There we go. And now what I can do is take these equal to each other. So that's equal to that plus that. And do that. And so that's the R net. What that doesn't account for are loads that might occur at restrained degrees of freedom. So let me go one step further and I'll call this R total. And so this is equal to that. Was it minus or plus? It was minus. And then this is up here. This is either, well, I got my loads and my displacements mixed up, but this is equal to that minus that. This is equal to that minus that. This is equal to that minus that. And so now if I come in and put a load directly on that, so minus, let's go here, minus 200 kips vertical, then that adds into my supports as well. Not sure I got that right. That strikes me as being a little goofy. Anyways, you should be able to calculate the reactions directly. And with the other two solution processes, you can't, because you would have to take a free body diagram of the restrained nodes and use the member forces in order to solve for the reactions. Like, again, I'm not sure that I have this right. I think I might have something wrong in there, but I don't want to take the class time up finding that mistake. One thing that I would do differently if I had this to do over again is these values here are actually forces. Those are the loads on the free degrees of freedom. And here, those are displacements. And I should have put those in as loads instead. And that's confusing. And I should have done that differently, but I didn't. But I have 15 minutes left and I want to illustrate one more principle to you. So let me sweep that little mistake under the rug and keep moving forward. Let me go back to this tab here, the version 1 of the members. One of the most tedious processes here is the process of expanding the element stiffness matrices from 4x4 in this case to 14x14 in this case. There is a more elegant way of doing that, and that is to use something that's called a mapping matrix. And the way that mapping matrix works is like this. The mapping matrix is a rectangular matrix that has the number of structured degrees of freedom rows. So in this case, we have 14 structured degrees of freedom. So there should be 14 rows. And it has a number of member degrees of freedom for the column. So in this case, each member has 4 degrees of freedom. So our mapping matrix is going to be a 14x4 matrix. So each row within that matrix corresponds to the ith structure degree of freedom. So structure degree of freedom 1 through structure degree of freedom 14. And each column in the matrix corresponds to the jth member degree of freedom. And so what we can do is we can enter ones and zeros into that matrix in order to map the member degrees of freedom in a 4x4 matrix to the structure degrees of freedom in a 14 by 14 degree matrix. And then we can use this matrix operation here, where the expanded stiffness matrix KE is equal to the mapping matrix times the unexpanded stiffness matrix times the transpose of the mapping matrix. And I didn't put that equation in the version of the handout that I posted on Canvas. I noticed that when I was eating my lunch before class, so you might have to jot that down. So if we implement this into our spreadsheet solution, what we can do is go to V2, and here I've got that mapping matrix built in. And so what I can do here is I can go in and I can say, all right, the structure degree of freedom number 1 corresponds to the first degree of freedom for member AB. Structure degree of freedom number 2 corresponds to the second degree of freedom for member AB. Structure degree of freedom number 3 corresponds to the third degree of freedom for member AB. Structure degree of freedom number 4 corresponds to the fourth degree of freedom for member AB. And then when you go through here and look, it's just performing that exercise where I have M times K times M transpose, and it will actually put those degrees of freedom or those stiffness coefficients where they need to be. So if we look at member AG, for example, I'm mapping degrees of freedom 1, 2 with 13 and 14. So that mapping matrix would look like that. For, let's see, member BC, I've got 3, 4, 5, and 6. Like that. For member BF, I've got 3, 4, 11, and 12. So I've got 3, 4, and then 11 and 12. For BG, I've got 3, 4, 13, and 14. Whoops. So I can put ones in like that. For CD, I've got 5, 6, 7, and 8. Like that. For CE, I've got 5, 6, 9, and 10. So let's see, 5, 6, 9, and 10. And then the last two, 5, 6, 11, and 12. Whoops, see, I went the wrong way. There we go. DE is 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then EF, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And then last member, FG, 11, 12, 13, and 14. All right, and then this is just adding all of those together. And if we want to go in and check this, what we can do is say that this is equal to that matrix instead. Let me check that. I get all zeros over here, so life is good. All right, and so that mapping matrix just provides a more elegant way of expanding the stiffness matrices so that you don't have to go through and manually reference correct cells in a 14 by 14 from the 4 by 4 matrix. And if you were even cleverer, you could probably come in and create the mapping matrix using a series of if statements or index statements or match statements, so that that was generated automatically by comparing the degrees of freedom in the mapped matrix to the degrees of freedom that were over here for the element stiffness matrix. I didn't take it that far, but I'm confident that you could do that if you wanted to. All right, so the mapping matrix thing is not part of your assignment. You don't have to do that for what's due tomorrow. I just present it to you as a tool to try and help you get through some of the more mundane, tedious parts that are error prone. And you saw that I went through it and made a mistake there. So I'm sure that you will too. If you want to use it for tomorrow's assignment, then that's fine. If you don't want to use it, then that's fine too. But hopefully this exercise has given you a little bit more to go on. What I'll do is I'll post my final solution after your assignment is after your homework is submitted tomorrow, and then you can go back through and look at the way that I've done things. So now, again, one more comment. I know there's somebody that's watching this that's thinking, well, why in the hell are we doing this in Excel? Why wouldn't we use MATLAB or something that's better suited for matrix operations? And the answer is because Excel is nice. You can see everything straight up in front of you. if you go through and use it in MATLAB or something like that, you're almost cheating because MATLAB is doing all the matrix manipulation for you. And so, all right. Yeah, it's 1:20. I think that with only a few minutes left, I don't think I'll bother to launch SAP. I think we'll wait. And then on Tuesday, we'll jump in at the beginning and I'll start up SAP and start illustrating output stations and load combinations then. So let's go ahead and pull the plug on this lecture. I'll hang around for a few minutes and answer questions you might have. But otherwise, I'm available Tuesday morning in office hours. Or I'll see you on Tuesday at 12:30. You guys have probably noticed this already, but with the invitations to the Zoom lectures, I went ahead and just put a recurring invitation in. So from now through the end of the semester, it should be the same calendar invite, just as a recurring invitation. All right, so have a good weekend. I'll hang around for a couple minutes for questions, but otherwise I'll see you next week.